Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park Baseball 22 series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And as usual, your first place Pirates are in the division lead through June 4th in this 2024 season. So this season has actually been pretty incredible, as you can already see. I mean, jokingly, we're in first place right now, and our team this has honestly been the weirdest season yet by far. And as you can see, it just starts off with we've won our last six. We're a game and a half up on the Cubs, 3 games up on the Cardinals. So we're in the driver's seat here and in this division, and as you can see from the wild card, we're pretty primed right now to make a decent run. So let's go ahead and see so I can show you just what happened this season. So we'll first look at the index, and we're 30 and 23 there. So we're performing pretty right on where we're expected to be, just a game ahead. So it's not like we're just outperforming our statistics by a ton. And then so here you can see in the NL offensive categories, offensively we're pretty good. We're 5th in runs scored, pretty good in batting average. On base is about there. So we're pretty much the 5th best offensive team in the NL so far. Basically, base running, we're also kind of in that 5th place. Pitching, we're a little better. We're 4th in runs against. We're 5th is second. We're 2nd in pitching WAR. So we're pretty good in that area, and then we're also kind of middle of the road defensively. So our pitching is definitely carrying our team a little bit here. But what the most interesting thing by far about this team is right now is the fact that we have been so injured this year. Just that it's kind of unbelievable how we've done so far this year. So we'll take a look at the injured list here. We have Reggie Lawson, who only pitched 13 innings. Wasn't really good in those 13 innings, but he's just on rehab now. Tristan McKenzie, he pitched 21 stellar innings for us, and he's out for 3 months with an ulnar nerve entrapment, so he's done for a while. Quentin Priester, he only pitched 6 innings this year in the major leagues, and he went on a rehab assignment, got hurt on that assignment. Now he's back, about to start a new one. So he's rehabbing again. JT Brubaker, he's still never pitched this season, never came back from his injury. I think his time got a little extended because he wasn't quite recovered. Josh Taylor, he pitched 28 innings this far. Actually, no, it's like he hasn't pitched this year. That was last year. I forgot he got hurt right at the end of last year. Yadier Alvarez, he tore his labrum, or partially tore his labrum, so he pitched 12 innings. He's down for 2 to 3 months. Brian Hayes has only had 8 major league at bats this season, and he's just coming off the injured list from injury he sustained this season. And Alexander Palma, one of our depth outfielders, he got 35 at bats, and then he got hurt, and he's still going to be on the shelf for 2 more weeks with a torn groin. Furthermore, in the minor leagues, we had Thomas Nido, who is in AAA now. He went down pretty much right away, only 4 at-bats. Now he's just coming back. Instead of putting him on a rehab assignment, I decided to send him down, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we have a ton of guys that are in the minor leagues here. Jared Jones is a prospect who's made great strides this year. He's pretty much major league ready, but we don't really have room for him on our roster because our pitching's been so disgusting. So it might be time to upgrade our offense a bit with some pitching. So now that I've showed you all the injuries that we've had, I'll go ahead and show you just how we've managed to have as good of a team as we have with all of this. So we'll start, of course, chronologically, first going over our catching duo, and Rortvedt has been very good. He's having his best career season so far offensively. 261, 361 OBP, slugging over 420. WRC plus is almost 120, so he's been a plus offensive guy for us, WAR of about 1. And then our backup catcher that we have in that tandem is the return of Jacob Stallings, of course, who we traded him to Boston, didn't really do as well in Boston last year, but he is back with the Pirates, and he is just awesome. We picked him up on a 1-year deal after Nido went down because we realized that we need another catcher once Nido went down. So we went ahead, and the free agency pool, Stallings was still there, so I went ahead and picked him up, and he's been picked right up where he left off almost hitting 300, 360 OBP. That BABIP is up there, but it's kind of always up there for stalling. So we'll see. And of course, he's a good defensive catcher, and he's already been worth 0.5 WAR in about 20 games of time. Chaju Ko has been our best offensive player pretty much. He was performing better. He's kind of slowed down at this point. He was more in the 280 range. He's gotten cold of late, so hopefully he can pick things back up. But, I mean, he's a productive hitter for us. Hopefully he can turn another season like he did last year for us. Aramis Adaman, he has really picked it up since last season. He has been about a league average hitter this year. His defense has also been better. He's been about average so far defensively. So him picking up that up, him picking up his play in general on the offensive side and defense side has been huge. 338 OBP, slugging over 400. He's performing way better than he did last season. So maybe it was just taking him a season to get adjusted to Major League pitching. Nick Gonzalez is a guy who we just called up because we needed some infield help, and he's a guy who's not rated too highly. He's a decent spec. He's a decent offensive spec. Can play some second base, maybe some third base, but that's about it. So he's getting some ABs as a backup second baseman for us right now. Cole Tucker pretty much has just been our starting third baseman this entire year since Brian Hayes has been out. He's played pretty much he's actually played every single game that he's played this year at third base. He's above average defender, of course, not as good as Brian Hayes, but still can definitely hold his own at third base. And he's been much better than he was offensively last year. He's kind of more back to 2022 Cole Tucker, 260, 314 OBP, slugging over 400. He's been a slightly less than league average hitter, but of course that solid defense that he provides at third base is a good addition. Steven Almeas, he was on the shelf for a bit as well, and during that time, Bay basically took over at shortstop for us, and we'll talk about him in a second. Almeas has been pretty good offensively actually for us. 255, 325 OBP. A 325 OBP is pretty much all I can ask out of Almeas. As you know, he is a fantastic defensive player. He hasn't had too much time at shortstop, but he's above average, and he's going to continue to be a great defender for us there at short. Ji-Hwan Bae has been kind of one of the stories of the season. He hit pretty well for contact last year in AAA, and he's been incredible for us this year. 423 BABIP, so definitely not really sustainable at all, but 324 average, 367 OBP, slugging over 500. He has about 100 at-bats for us. He mostly got a good amount of time at pitching side. He's mostly gotten time at shortstop for us while Mesa is on. He's a poor defender at shortstop. He's just even like a passable defender at second base, where he's got a little bit of time as he's gotten a little bit at third base. And his bat has just kept him in it. He has been just on it just the entire time, and we really needed him because if he's a guy that if he's not hitting, he's really not even worth playing on the major league roster because of how poor his defense at shortstop is. Brian Reynolds has been kind of back to the Brian Reynolds that we saw earlier in the series, probably even worse honestly. 230, 300, 345. He's pretty much the only guy in this team that's just not hitting at all, which is really disappointing, especially how high the AI is hitting him in the lineup third against righties. He's a guy who I think I'm definitely going to move no matter what during this season, just to get him off the roster, especially with the team control. He's going to have 2 more years of team control since the RBers got raised to 7. So he's at 7.5 right now. With the Pirates, we just don't have any room to pay a guy $7.5 million if he's just not performing at all. So we're going to be moving him around the deadline this year. We just can't have him turning in this production, especially when we have guys who can easily surpass that production for much cheaper. And speaking of the rest of our outfield, we have Christian Robinson here, who has been starting at center field. Tochi, I just DFA'd him. I don't even remember if he came back on after we he's still in the organization. He hasn't gotten any time in AAA yet, but he was so bad, as you can see. 222, 275, 270. He was awful for us. And Christian Robinson, his range is good enough to play passable defense in center field. Yeah, he's been about average in the 13 games, and with his bat, I mean, he's been 296, 390, 507. If he had a full season under his belt, he probably would be our best hitter to date so far. So he someone who we need to play in center field every day, and he's been hot recently, as you can see. So he's a guy who has been pretty big for us in the 70 ABs. He's gotten Travis Swaggerty. He hasn't gotten much time, but in that time he's been pretty dynamite. We called him up after DFA Tochi so he could be the backup center fielder. Estevan Florial has been much improved since the last time we saw in the major leagues. 244, 320, and 469. Nice performance from him. 110 WRC plus, a little above league average for him. He plays dynamite defense in right field. Good range, good air, and a cannon of an arm out there in right. And then Jing Shane, I'm not sure quite how to pronounce his last name. He's a fantastic offensive player for us. Hasn't gotten too many at-bats, but 321, 393, 513. He is crazy good at the plate. And if we trade Reynolds, he's the one he's just going to start in left field for us. When we do trade Reynolds, we need his excellent bat against left-handed pitching in the lineup. He's way more valuable than Reynolds to have in that kind of role. And I think I might just set his position in left field to see if we could get his ratings go up a little bit, and it didn't. But yeah, I would prefer to get him in more starts in left field. So we'll see if we can. I can do that over the course of the year. So that's basically it for the hitters. Now looking at the pitching here, short by the guys who have been the worst. And we'll start off with Carlos Carrasco, who of course we brought in as a kind of buy low candidate. $3.3 million we brought him in for this year. He of course started the year on the shelf because of an injury that he had when we signed him. Of course we knew about that. We brought him in. He started 4 games in that time. He has not been very good in those 4 games. A 7.8 ERA. His FIP is better because he's stricken out a good amount of guys, but he is getting hit around. So hopefully he can get better for us. We have no shortage of pitching depth, so if he doesn't perform, we'll just trade him as we get in here a little bit and he gets a little more time. And so if he's not good, no worries. We'll just trade him, get that salary out, and bring up a young guy that we have. But other than that, I mean, as you can see, everyone else has a FIP under 4, except this guy, Blake Cederland, who's been, he's been a fine reliever. He strikes out a good amount of guys. He has been about league average, and he's a nice reliever, nice depth reliever we have on this team. Kumar Rocker, he, of course, is our highest rated pitcher pretty much. He has been awesome. His potential has gone up all the way to 80. He is 24, and he's having a good start to the season. I mean, his ERA is better than his FIP. He hasn't struck out many guys, which is kind of surprising considering he does have pretty good wipeout stuff. So it's kind of surprising, but I mean, it looks he must be rolling a lot of ground balls. He's having this performance with ERA, but still a sub-4 FIP is pretty good. Josh Tomlin, I believe I picked him up off of waivers because that was the point where just so much of the pitching was injured that we just needed to get someone. So he's pitched 19 games for us, started 2. He's just a free control guy who has a ton of control, and he's been good. Pretty much any role we've asked him to pitch in, he's been pretty solid for us. So he, 0.6 walks per 9. That is pretty incredible. So he's a guy who's been pretty reliable for us throughout the season. Mitch Keller, of course, who is usually our best starter. He has a high 3s FIP, high 2 DRA. On pace to have his best season yet as a Pirate, so he is chugging along right where we'd expect him to be. Ryan Nelson, who's kind of that fringe starter guy that we acquired in a trade with the Diamondbacks over the offseason. He has been great as a starter for us. We've needed him to start because of, again, all the injuries we've had to our starting rotation. So Nelson has been great for us this year, 3.83 FIP. He has gotten 10 starts. He started every single appearance he's made this year, and he's been great in those appearances. And then now here we get into guys who have been just very good for us. Javi Guerra here, he has been dominant for us. I mean, not dominant, but he's been a solid reliever. 3.16 FIP. He has been very useful reliever for us. He's been pretty reliable too. I mean, ERA in the mid threes last year, ERA in the low four before that. I mean, he's not rated very highly, but he just continues to perform for us pretty much every year. Nick Nelson has been our best starter this year. He was okay last year, leading towards kind of struggling at the end of the year after a very good debut with the Pirates in 2022 after we traded for him from the Yankees. And this year he's picked right up from that form, kind of very low 3 FIP, 1.5 win above replacement. Big strikeout guy, almost striking out 12 guys per 9. So he's been very good. Victor Gonzalez, lefty out of the bullpen this year, exclusively pitching out of the bullpen, not starting this year. That ERA is high, but he strikes out a pretty good clip of guys and doesn't really walk a lot compared to how many people he's struck out. And he's been an effective lefty out of the bullpen who has consistently shut down lefties. Speaking of lefties, Scott Alexander has been money for us this year. Sub 3 FIP. He was good for us last year as well, and he continues to be a good lefty reliever for us. Nick Mears is a guy who hasn't really gotten a chance with the team. Last year he dominated AAA and AA. And this year we've called him up. He has a pretty high ERA, but he is a strikeout machine, striking out 12 guys per 9. And his ERA isn't very good, but because of just how many guys he strikes out, his FIP is amazing compared to that. Jeff Hartlieb, he's been a very good reliever for us every year since we've called him up, and this year is no exception. A 1.67 ERA, 2.33 FIP. He's been our best reliever so far this year. He has been absolutely so effective. He's got good movement. He's a guy who rolls a lot of ground balls, and he's been very good this year. David Bednar, we called him up semi-recently because of all the pitching injuries, and he's only gotten about 10 innings, but in those 10 innings, he's been so effective. He had a good season last year just because of how things worked out with room on the roster. We just couldn't start him on the active roster because he did have options at the start of the season, but he hasn't even allowed an earned run this year, so he's been good in those 10 innings about that he's pitched this year. And that's basically the story with this year's team. A ton of injuries, an absolute ton of injuries that we've had, but literally everyone who we've called up to fill those roles have just been super effective, and we're about to get a lot better as a team too. The guys like Brian Hayes coming back, Quinn Priester's coming back, so even though we've gotten good performances from a lot of the guys we've called up, having guys like that back will be huge. Having Hayes back probably means that Cole Tucker would slot in to be the starting shortstop. Almeas would probably be defensive replacement, and then Bay would be here to be a pinch hitter. The main thing that I'm concerned with this year is just getting Brian Reynolds off the roster so we can get at bats to other guys. I really want to get Jing Sheng at bats here, just because his hitting ratings are just insane. I mean, he never strikes out. He makes contact a lot. He doesn't have a good amount of home run power or even good discipline, but with the amount he doesn't swing and miss, and the amount he just puts his bat on the ball and has good gap power, I mean, he's perfect for PNC Park, which is a park that just that allows more doubles than the average Major League Stadium. Kind of looking towards the future salary-wise, we're going to need to be cutting some salary. And Reynolds is definitely the place where we can do it the most effectively. Carrasco, we'll probably end up moving him no matter what, now that I think of it, just because we have so much pitching depth. Like, we can call him Jared Jones, who hasn't even seen any Major League action yet. We have Quinn Priester down there. This guy who hasn't really even got a shot at the majors, but I mean, he's available. We have Reggie Lawson, who's much better rated as a reliever. Blake Wyman. I mean, we have so much pitching depth in this team. We even have a decent amount of hitting depth through Janista. We have Koch, who's a good offensive catcher, who's tearing it up in AAA. Nito, who's a good defensive catcher. Peguero, we called him up for a little bit this year because we just had to, because of all the injuries we had, and he raked for the short time he was up there. So, I mean, literally everyone except Tochi that we've had up in the major leagues this year is just hitting the cover off the ball pretty much. So it's been an interesting year. So we're definitely going to be shooting for the playoffs this year. That's fully my plan. I mean, with all the pitching we have, I think we could maybe sacrifice some of our pitching depth to go ahead and go out and maybe get like a stud shortstop, a guy who can play defense and hit a little bit. I'd say that is probably our main focus. I mean, I don't really want to get an outfielder because I don't want to have to play anyone over Robinson and Jing Shang if that comes to it. Maybe we could upgrade at second base, but I think going out and getting a guy who can just rake as a shortstop would probably be the best upgrade to this team. Because other than that, we just have so much good depth. I think having that depth instead of acquiring like a star that we just have for the year would probably be more worth it. But that's basically all I have to say for this video. When we check in July, we should be back to pretty much full strength. At least hopefully we are. Brian Hayes should be back by then, and Priester should be back in the major league roster by then. So we should be operating at full strength the next time I check in about a month here in July. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next episode.